It all started on January 13th of 2018, when a lone YouTuber by the name of Hikikomori Media released a 3-part Shadows of the Damned documentary. It was this critical event that caused a cascading effect across the internet and time itself. This landmark documentary series covered a David versus Goliath situation. A young buck developer by the name of SUDA51 had a Franz Kafka-inspired dream game that he was trying to get made by the name of Kurayami. But the dream was killed and revived and killed and revived 5 times before it culminated into the game we know now. For many years, SUDA51 suffered in silence with his story untold. That was until Hikiko's video spoke SUDA51's truth, and the documentary Shadows of the Damned: The Untold Story became the told story. And the story was told again and again and again on YouTube.
Here we go again.
It inspired so many other content creators. And by inspired, I mean people just watched the video, copied the research, and then claimed it as their own.
How do you know? That's like super classified demon information.
Not according to the internet.
But hey, some good came out of all of it. Somebody updated the Wikipedia about Shadows of the Damned to include all the information from Hikiko's video, especially that part about Kurayami showing up in The Evil Within under a DLC campaign, taking place in an Eastern European village and then mimicking some of the fundamental concepts from the original Kurayami game. SUDA51's mentor, Shinji Mikami, just stole his protege's idea right out from under him. It's okay. We're all just borrowing each other's information over and over again in this post-AI hellscape world. It's very Kafkaesque. For the longest time, I thought Shadows of the Damned was a dead franchise, being locked away in the vault of EA IP, never to see the light of day again. However, about 3 years ago, I made a director's cut version of my Shadows of the Damned documentary, which included a new chapter that included information about the Kurayami dance manga and the surprise inclusion of a Shadows of the Damned themed level in SUDA51's game Travis Strikes Again.
This is goodbye, partner.
Garcia, what are you saying?
You take over for me now.
In that chapter, I did a deep dive into the trademark filings surrounding Shadows of the Damned. I was curious to know why EA was so kind to our boy SUDA after putting him through the ringer so many years back when the game was under development.
Also, EA kept telling me over and over, fix this, redo this. If I ever happened to work with EA on another game, I'd really appreciate if they would just okay the first version of the script next time.
It seemed as if EA relinquished the rights to Shadows of the Damned to Grasshopper Manufacture according to this filing date back in February of 2021. At that point, I made the prediction that it would not be the last time we saw Shadows of the Damned. Could this mean a possible sequel or a remaster of Shadows in the near future? Let's just say our chances got a lot better. About a year after I released that video, Grasshopper Manufacture put out one of the most bizarre surprise reveals in their signature fucked up way.
What the hell, man? Hey, what the fuck?
Bullet train is here. Hell monkey and Miggy. I will blow your head off nicely.
No.
So, my hype once again was beyond belief. Here it was, Shadows of the Damned Hella Remastered. Look at this beautiful stained glass key art that they made for it. You got Fleming and all of Fleming's lemmings, Garcia, Johnson, and all the various forms of Johnson, including the big boner, which acts as a dividing line to split angel and demon form of Paula. It's incredible. After all these years of waiting, Shadows of the Damned was no longer going to be trapped to the 7th generation of consoles, the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. One thing to note here, Shadows of the Damned technically did come out for the Xbox One and Series consoles as part of the backwards compatibility program. You could actually buy this digitally if you wanted to. However, after the rights transferred from EA to Grasshopper, the game was pulled from the Xbox marketplace. If you have a disc copy lying around of the 360 360 version of Shadows of the Damned, you can still pop it in your Xbox One to Series X, and it will download the backwards compatible version, and you can still play it and upscale it based on your hardware. So that begs the question, what the hell a remaster offers over the Xbox backwards compatible version? So I purchased Hello Remastered on Steam, primarily so I could play it on my Steam Deck. All of the footage that I'm showing you is running off of my Steam Deck connected to my capture card. I figured the Steam Deck would be a good way to show the PC version using a standardized set of specs, and I can report back that it plays like a dream on the Steam Deck. However, from the feedback I've been reading on the Hello Remastered port, it has not lived up to the expectations of modern PC players, and that's largely due to the lack of graphics options provided on the PC port. The PC version does not offer any sorts of toggles for the player to make over how the game looks, unless you start getting into fan mods for it. Engine Software handled the PC port of Shadows of the Damned, and they also handled the divisive Killer 7 port, where they used AI to upscale the resolution of all the animated cutscenes in the game, and the end result made everything look like a 2x Super Sci filter running on SNES 9X, if you know what I mean.
It's Dan Smith, my man!
Yo, how's it going with next week's story, huh?
I can't say they did a terrible job with Hello Remastered, because as a port, it's completely functional. I played through the beginning to the end of the game with minor glitches here and there, but nothing game-breaking. You should know by now that I have a rather low bar of expectations when it comes to PC ports of my favorite games.
FBI Special Agent, Francis York Morgan. Please, just call me York. That's what everyone calls me.
Agent York?
Good, that's good.
Hello Remastered runs at 60 frames per second, which the game maintained on my Steam Deck. Even with many bouts of intense action, I didn't notice any dropping. Most, but not all cutscenes have had their frame rate boosted and the resolution upscaled, but there are some things I noticed, like the Ghost and Goblins inspired map screens where Garcia is moving from stage to stage. Those are just straight up a 720p rip from the console versions. While most of the character models have been redone in the higher resolution, a lot of the objects within the game world still render at a 720p, and it's quite noticeable when you point your gun at the various posters plastered throughout the underworld. The lower resolution textures really stick out like a sore thumb, like when Garcia makes the phone call for the big boner, or when you're walking across Paola's. Don't cut yourself on those things, cabron. Anyway, I ended up downloading a Unreal Engine model viewer so I could go through and look at all the textures and models of everything in the game, and honestly, I didn't see any remnants of Kurayami within, which is a little disappointing, but also brings me some closure knowing that I'm not missing out on anything. There's also some glitches exclusive to the PC version that have been addressed on the console versions. For example, some of the times when Garcia tries to do a brutal kill, the camera's supposed to fix at a certain point to get closer up on the action, but occasionally that glitches out and it just sticks right behind Garcia, making some of these moves look a little more awkward. But for whatever reason, if you load into another map, it fixes itself. There are some other glitches in the game, like at the very end, during this tender moment between Garcia and Paola, right after the big boss fight, there's supposed to be some dialogue spoken between them that's just missing. Flat out not there.
Spirit once more, a final learning process.
Here's what it's supposed to sound like.
I have already found my escape.
I want to see you once again before I close my eyes forever. I love you, Garcia. I love you.
Yes, I love you, Paula.
For the sake of preserving the original Shadows of the Damned experience, I compel thee, Grasshopper! Release a patch and bring this dialogue back. This game narrowly dodged a bullet because Greg Ellis, the original voice actor for Johnson, got arrested on revenge porn charges 2 months after the game released. Grasshopper's too broke and lazy to patch him out of the game, so the original performances stand, I guess.
Greg Ellis, welcome, Greg. Thank you for being here.
Hey, Greg.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be on.
Absolutely. Now, before we get into the night your life was literally turned upside down, tell us what your life was like before that evening. Paint us a picture.
Demon keeps dreaming of a demon town. Motherfucker, bitch, fuck, shit went down.
On the positive side, the red gem exploit still exists, which allows you to get as many red gems as you want by reloading the game in this particular spot, collecting a gem, and then reloading again after saving at this checkpoint. Not sure if it's a bug or a feature. The most notable additions to the remaster were the addition of New Game Plus, which just allows you to carry over your weapons and all your gem upgrades into a new game, but it's on the same difficulty mode. And in the New Game Plus exists about 4 new costumes. There's Shirtless Garcia, which is from the prologue of the game, kind of the laziest edition. There's Garcia in the demon form, which was found in the concept art, and I believe this was supposed to be some sort of devil trigger thing in one of the earlier versions of Shadows, which is reflected in the costume as this is the only costume that grants you any sort of perk. Here you get double attack power. There's the Wataru costume, which is kind of cool, but once again, it doesn't really offer all that much, and that hat kind of gets in the way, if I'm being honest. And then there's the Travis Strikes Again inspired 8 Hearts costume, which means you're now playing as Johnson and Johnson. Not a whole lot to note other than the cape physics and this little chain on his arm are completely messed up and kind of distracting, but it's still cool to see this as a costume. An additional benefit of these modern gen ports is they take advantage of new NVMe technology, meaning that the levels load instantaneously, which is kind of nice, especially when you look back at how slow the PlayStation 3 version was. As someone who's completed Shadows nearly 10 times now, it was nice to see the addition of a scene skip to the cutscenes, although you can't skip every scene as some scripted sequences force you to watch them play out before you can continue playing again. Not a huge deal, but worth mentioning if you care about speedrunning. I'm still a little miffed that they didn't add a chapter select. There's a lot of one-time only mini games that I quite enjoy, and it would just be nice to be able to pop back over to them just for fun, but can't have everything, I suppose. Another positive thing to note is that all of Akira Yamaoka's soundtrack is now fully uncompressed, at least on the PC version. So you can hear all the Lost Silent Hill soundtrack in the highest quality sample rate, and ask yourself if he thought he could really get away with this without Silent Hill fans noticing that he put the Silent Hill 4 title screen music in Shadows of the Damned. Well, guess what, Yamaoka? I noticed. Go watch my video that explains more on this subject. Moving on. I'm a bit conflicted when it comes to Hella Remastered. On the plus side, Shadows of the Dam is more available than it's ever been before. And it's a great opportunity for fans old and new to get acquainted with the franchise and offer Grasshopper Manufacture a little bit of financial support, giving us a way to cast a practical vote for the future of this franchise. On the other hand, I can see why everyone was upset with how this game was branded. Let's get this out of the way. Calling Shadows of the Dam Hella Remastered is kind of a misnomer. If I'm being honest, the project is more of a bare-bones port job to modern hardware. And inherently, there's nothing wrong with that, especially considering that the game only released at $25. My expectations were rather low going in. And in every interview that I've read with SUDA51, he's tried to communicate that this was just going to be a pure port with some minor quality of life fixes and fun costumes to unlock. It really didn't need to be any more than that. Business-wise, it keeps the development costs low and provides a lower barrier to entry with the $25 price point to introduce Shadows of the Dam to a brand new generation. A generation of gamers who don't buy games, they just watch them on YouTube. Surprise, cocksucker 51, welcome to 2025. The financial failure of Hella Remastered was likely due to it being overshadowed by another Grasshopper remaster that released released just a month before Shadows of the Damned, Lollipop Chainsaw Repop, which had no involvement from Grasshopper, SUDA 51, or James Gunn. Now this may be an unfair comparison, and it is, but that's not going to stop everyone from thinking these two projects were by the same people. Lollipop Chainsaw Repop, released by Dragami Games for nearly double the price at $44.99, is not just a simple port job with small additions like Hella Remastered. This has a lot more features and touch-ups and alterations, I should say, compared to the pure port job that is Hella Remastered. Due to some licensing issues with music and criminal sexual allegations against one of the voice actors / music producers, a lot of the core of the original Lollipop Chainsaw was altered to make this release happen.
I love the smell of almost dead cheerleader in the morning. Yeah! I love the smell of almost dead cheerleader in the morning. Yeah! Fuck!
Hit his ass hard! Fuck! Giant letters!
And they made this entire repop mode, which tones down the gore and amps up the cutesy sparkles and rainbows aesthetic, which, in the game's defense, resembles more of the original Japanese release of Lollipop Chainsaw, but thankfully, there is an original mode that resembles the uncensored Western 360 PS3 release that contains all the gore. Personally, I don't like repop as a project, because the original game was a musical, and the music was integral to the design within LC. Each boss was themed after a particular genre or era of music. It's kind of a big deal when you alter anything in this particular area. Repop replaced all the original boss theme music, which used to be synced to the action of the battles themselves. Take, for example, the Josie boss fight. In the original, the strobe lights would sync in time to the music. But in Repop, the lights are just randomly timed. No consideration given to the action. Don't even get me started with all the missing license music. I get why they had to do it. I don't agree with it. Repop looks a bit more modern, plays slightly smoother, and rebalances a few areas, but I think it does a worse job of preserving the style and feel of the original Lollipop Chainsaw. If you've played the original Lollipop Chainsaw, the omissions and alterations are glaringly obvious. Altering and removing some of the music was a big hit to what made the original special. Now, if I had to choose, I still prefer Hella Remastered's approach, with the focus on keeping the experience true to the original as possible, whilst keeping the price low. It may not have paid off in the short term, but I think it was a smart move to keeping the legacy of Shadows alive in the long term. At a glance, the Steam database numbers regarding Shadows of the Damned are a bit disheartening to see, but it doesn't tell the full story. The game was also released on consoles like the Nintendo Switch, the PlayStation 4 and 5, and the Xbox series of consoles. Longtime fans of Shadows of the Damned were likely console players because the original game was locked down to the 7th generation of consoles. So I'd like to say the majority of the player base existed there. Also, comparing it against Lollipop tabletop chainsaw, which is the best-selling game that Grasshopper ever produced, by virtue of its popularity, of course it's going to sell better than Shadows of the Dam. If you're looking for a more true to the original experience, go with Shadows of the Damned. I know this is largely a selfish request here, but I truly do want to see a future for this franchise. For the meantime, I think the best we can hope for is that Garcia and other characters from Shadows of the Dam appearing in future Grasshopper games. Maybe not Johnson. That's my prediction. I see this as more of a long tail seller in the vein of Killer is Dead, which took 10 whole years before it finally surpassed 1 million sales. I think given enough time, Shadows could absolutely crush those numbers, but it all depends on if those fans actually follow through and buy something for a change. You hear me? Stop watching YouTube. Except my videos. Keep watching those. Give me a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this.